Hello, I'm Max Mueller, and I'm going to share some very important information about the law and the Form I-9. Do you have 4 or more workers? If you do, then by the end of the 3rd business day after you hire someone, you and they have to complete a document that accomplishes 2 things. 1, it identifies the person as being who they say they are, and 2, it verifies that the new hire is work eligible in the United States. That document is called the Form I-9. So, who do you have to have an I-9 for? You should complete a Form I-9 for every new employee you've hired after November 6, 1986, and have an I-9 on file for every current employee. If you employ workers hired before November 6, 1986, you don't need an I-9 for them. You also don't need to worry about people employed for casual domestic work in a private home on a sporadic, irregular, or intermittent basis. And you don't need an I-9 for temporary workers you hire from an employment agency or for any truly independent contractor you hire that you'll pay on a Form 1099 basis. If you put someone on your payroll, even for 1 day, and you're going to pay them on a W-2 basis, you do need to fill out a Form I-9. Let me tell you what happens if you don't have an I-9 for every one of your current employees. If ICE comes calling, and ICE is the Immigration Customs Enforcement Department of the Department of Homeland Security, you can be fined from $100 to $1,100 per I-9. Imagine then that you don't have I-9s for 10 of your workers, or that you have 10 I-9s that are materially incorrect. In other words, there are signatures missing, boxes haven't been checked, or there are dates missing. You're looking at penalties of up to $11,000. Think about what it takes for your company to generate $11,000 pre-tax. Let's say your organization enjoys a 12% gross profit margin on whatever it is that you do. If you divide $11,000 by 12%, you realize that you would have to sell almost $92,000 in goods and services to generate the $11,000 pre-tax. And then what would you do with the money? You'd hand it over as a penalty. It's because of the heavy penalties that ICE could levy that it's critical for you to undertake an internal audit of your I-9s now. I urge you to audit your personnel files immediately to ensure that you have an I-9 for every current worker you hired after November 6, 1986. And while you're doing that, do also look for I-9s with material errors on them. Okay, let's say you do find some that are missing or materially incorrect. Can you just make corrections in pen and ink and date and initial the corrections? I strongly recommend that you have the affected employees fill out new I-9s. I know that's a pain. However, it's critical that you show good faith in order to avoid being penalized. If you follow my suggestion that you audit your personnel files and ensure that you have an I-9 for all current workers, you'll have to deal with the problem of certain dates not matching statutory requirements. Let me explain and address some critical time frames. The new hire must complete Section 1 of the I-9 by the end of the 1st business day they come to work for you. I suspect that's a surprise to some of you. I want to repeat it. The new hire must complete Section 1 by the end of the 1st business day they come to work for you. They can fill it out prior to that 1st day, and in fact, it's common for employers to send out intake packets of various employment forms like the W-4, etc., prior to the new hire actually coming in for their 1st day of work. They just need to make sure that they get it filled out before the end of that 1st day. Now, you really need to ensure that your supervisors understand the proper timing of the Form I-9. Many managers get their companies in trouble because they let people start work before they fill out important payroll intake forms like a W-4 or an I-9. In fact, I'll bet some of you have had the experience of a supervisor calling payroll and asking, "How come so-and-so didn't get a paycheck?" And payroll responding, "And just who is so-and-so?" Okay, the worker's start date is called for in Section 2 of the I-9. In addition, There is also a date block that the employer must complete by the end of the 3rd business day after the new hire begins work. So, if the worker and the company fill out a new I-9 sometime after the required time frames and the current date or dates are used in Sections 1 and 2, then it appears the law has been violated. To document that your company acted in good faith, you should write a memo to the file memorializing the voluntary self-audit. To summarize, you need an I-9 for every current employee hired after November 6, 1986. You should audit your personnel files to ensure that you not only have the requisite I-9s, but that those you do have are accurate and complete. Lastly, you should write a memo documenting your efforts in order to show good faith. Don't wait and risk major headaches and stiff penalties. Make sure your I-9 documentation is accurate and up to date.